this video, we're going to explore how to confidently and politely share your thoughts in an American business context. Hello, I'm Cecilia, your guide and the heart behind culture confidence. If you've ever felt unsure about when or how to speak up in a business meeting, you're not alone. Join me as we explore the art of doing this confidently and politely in any business context. In American business culture, interjecting or interrupting even can be acceptable in many contexts, such as brainstorming discussions or dynamic discussions, depending on your background. This can feel easy or painful. However, to succeed in your career, you can and should speak up. Let's break down 5 ways you can share your thoughts respectfully to ensure a collaborative and inclusive environment. Probably the most natural way for many is to listen for a pause in the conversation and speak up during the pause. Waiting for a moment when the speaker takes a breath or finishes a sentence ensures a smoother transition. These pauses aren't often very long for American businesses, so you might need to be fast. Imagine a lively discussion about project updates. Most people are going to add their ideas seemingly one on top of another. If you're not used to the speed of the conversation, this can be a little overwhelming. Pay close attention and you'll notice that they interject during very short pauses when someone takes a breath or they just break their sentence. Sharing ideas during these pauses allows for a seamless contribution. As you listen, you'll catch the rhythm, so be observant. You can find it. Now, if you're having trouble finding those pauses, using a gesture can be helpful to get the attention of whomever is speaking. When you have something valuable to add, you can slightly lift a finger, raise your hand, and people will start to understand you want to say something. This nonverbal cue gives a signal of your intention to contribute without disrupting the flow of the conversation. Let's think again about the brainstorming session. Everyone is rapid fire sharing their ideas. You're not sure when you can interject, so you lift your hand about shoulder height with your finger raised, and people understand that, oh, this person wants to add something. When the current speaker looks at you, listen for that little tiny pause and then speak. Keep in mind that the bigger the group, the bigger your gesture should be. You may need to try other gestures. If you're unsure what is polite or rude, observe how others add their ideas. Keep in mind that for online meetings, there may be a built-in hand raise that you can use to get the host's attention. Let's imagine you've waited for a pause or you've indicated that you want to speak with a gesture. Next, you can introduce your contribution with phrases like, I'd like to add, building on what was said. These signal your intention to provide additional insights without appearing abrupt. Imagine you're in a meeting discussing a new software design. You have an insight based on customer surveys, so you'd like to start with, building on that, I'd like to emphasize the customer feedback we've received. This gives a full indication of what you're going to talk about, as well as allowing you to step in very naturally and smoothly. You can also politely acknowledge the current speaker before adding your input. This shows respect for their perspective and that you've been listening to the discussion. For instance, you can start with, John, I appreciate your insights on our marketing goals. I'd like to add another perspective to the discussion, considering the budget constraints that we discussed last week. Does that feel more complicated? Let's try it simply. John, thanks for your ideas on our marketing goals. We could also think about the budget limits we discussed last week. Anyway, there's many ways you can simplify it, many ways you can interject and add your ideas. Don't be afraid. This is totally possible. Now, imagine you're struggling to find a pause. It may be necessary to interrupt while someone is speaking. You can apologize briefly and explain the urgency of your point. This maintains politeness while highlighting the importance of your contribution. An example could be, I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting, but I wanted to bring to attention a critical deadline about our current discussion. And then you just explain what you need to say and say, okay, now we can continue. No problem. Let's think about an example. Recently, I had a client who gave me feedback on how she used these tips in a strategy meeting. She was really unsure how to approach it initially. We talked through these strategies, we practiced together, and she told me what happened. In her meeting, she used a few different techniques to speak up. First, she had to take the time to observe the rhythm of the conversation, and she started to notice those little pauses that we were talking about. And once she caught the rhythm, she was able to detect a pause. She then used a phrase like, "I'd like to add," to introduce her contribution to the discussion. The timing allowed for a smooth transition, and her contribution was well received. It was a great success for my previously reserved client to speak up and be heard. These are some of the coolest things, and I hope to hear your own experiences as you try these techniques. So, there you have it. 5 ways to politely interject in American business culture. Let me know in the comments below which strategy feels most comfortable for you. And let me know how it goes if you try it in a meeting. Remember, the goal is not to avoid interruptions entirely, but to navigate them with respect. You foster an environment where everyone's voice is heard. So, if you found these tips valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more communication insights. Until next time, stay confident and communicate with impact.